Tennis for Two. The first video game ever was invented by a physicist, William Higginbottom. It was made in 1958. A tennis-type game known as computer tennis or Tennis for Two was a game played on a oscilloscope and controlled by two dials on separate controllers. It was set up for display for 3 days at the Brookhaven Natural Observatory. During these 3 days, many kids came lining up just to play on it. It was a game that began the rise of the thing we all know and love today, video games. 1972, the Magnavox Odyssey. The Magnavox Odyssey was created by a team led by Ralph H. Baer in 1972. It was the first console that allowed home TV gaming. It was capable of showing 3 square dots and a line that could vary in height. These, of course, were in black and white. The console came with 2 rectangular controllers that were connected by wires. The console also came with plastic overlays for the TV that added to the look of the game. The first year it sold 69,000 units, and once it was discontinued it sold 350,000 in 1975. The Odyssey also marked the beginning of the console games, and it was the first big rise in the video game industry. Pong is another tennis-type game. It has 2 movable lines, and you and a friend can control it to hit a square back and forth. The game was created by Alan Alcorn. It was supposed to be a training project, but Atari admired the quality of the game and decided to manufacture it. But because it was based on a game from the Magnavox Odyssey, they received a lawsuit from the Magnavox. Pong was still just as popular, and it helped establish the video game industry along with the Odyssey. Because of this, other companies created games similar to Pong, which led to Atari wanting to move past Pong and make better games. The Atari 2600. Atari released its video computer system in 1977, better known as the Atari 2600. It was a precursor to the modern consoles. It had swappable cartridges and it came with 2 joysticks for controllers. The Atari 2600 featured classic games like Space Invaders, Frogger, and Donkey Kong. The console was very successful and it led to the creation of Activision, which developed games for the Atari 2600 along with other third-party developers. These games were much more complicated and had better visuals than what the 2600 was designed for. After the Atari launched 2 new games, Pac-Man and E.T., but the poor quality of Pac-Man led to the loss of consumer confidence in the 2600, and E.T. was deemed a failure. This eventually led to the ending of the 2600's relevance and a video game crash in 1983, which was a video game recession that lasted from 1983 to 1985. In 1985, the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES, was the console that reignited the consumer passion for video games. Nintendo, which was founded in Japan as a playing card business, got into the video game industry and revolutionized it. The graphics on the NES were far superior than the previous consoles. With its additional memory, games were able to be longer, which allowed for better storytelling. Many classic games were developed for the NES, like Super Mario Bros., Final Fantasy, and The Legend of Zelda. These games are still coming out with spin-offs and sequels today. In 1989, the Sega Genesis was launched. It was the next generation of consoles. When the Japanese company Sega released the Genesis, it introduced a new classic character, Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic was seen as the cooler, more mature counterpart to Mario. This helped them win over older gamers. There was a competition between Sega and Nintendo. Genesis was like, "We're the cool kids, Nintendo is just for babies," McGuinness says for the early rivalry between Sega and Nintendo.
What Nintendo?
The PlayStation, released in December 1994, was another generation-defining change in video games. The PlayStation brought new technology to the gaming industry. For starters, the PlayStation used discs, which were able to hold a lot more space on them than cartridges. This allowed for gaming developers to make longer and more complicated games. Video games like Metal Gear Solid and Final Fantasy were examples of this. The PlayStation's changed everything, says McGuinness. It has CDs and 3D textures and polygons and all that cool stuff. The console even sold more than 100 million units. Eventually, the PlayStation 2, 3, 4, and 5 were made, each being better than the last. In 1999, the Sega Dreamcast was launched, and although it wasn't a hit, it was the first to feature online gaming. And online gaming is one of the best things to ever come to gaming. Most popular games nowadays are mostly online. Without this, gaming would have gotten bland a while ago, but because of it, a new world of gaming was discovered.
Yo, Sonic! Sonic! Man, the light speed.
My bad.
Sonic Adventure on Sega Dreamcast.